All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are continuing our series of doing a deep dive on every single team in the league as we prepare for training camp, preseason, and the start of the regular season just less than 2 months away. So, if you guys are new here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I will be posting this video on my Houston Rockets channel as well. So, if you see this uh, and you're watching it on Houston Rockets Daily, don't be confused or whatever. Anyways, that is it for the intro. Today we're talking about my Houston Rockets. So, when I first started making YouTube videos on this channel, technically my first video was a Lakers video, but my channel was very, very, very heavily centered around the Houston Rockets, the season they traded away James Harden. So, shout out to Rocket Nation. I love you guys. Throw up the H. And I got the Seattle hat actually out here for Kevin Porter Jr. So, real quick, I do want to say I am a little under the weather, so I apologize if I guess I guess I'm not apologizing for anything. I'm under the weather. That's it. Uh, so when we look at Houston this past season, 20-62. All right, you had the second worst defense in the NBA. You had the fourth worst offense in the NBA. Things were not great, but then when we look at the second half of the season, that's where Houston really started to turn things around. And in my opinion, I mean, you see it right here, points wise, pre All Star break, 108.5 points per game. Post All Star break, 112.7 points per game. So my big thing with Houston this past season was it was a year where we just drafted Jalen Green. We had just traded away James Harden. And to me, this past season was all about finding our franchise guy. And we'll talk about this a little later on in the video, but the Houston Rockets 100% have found their guy in Jalen Green. Jalen Green is by far, right now, as far as I'm concerned, he is our franchise player. So when you're doing these rebuilds, that's the most important thing, because until you have your franchise piece, you can't really do too much. What good is it if we filled out our roster with veterans this past season if we don't even know who, like, kind of the way the future of the franchise is looking. So Daniel Tice didn't work out. He was really one of our only veterans on our team. Is really one of our only free agent moves that we did in this past off or two off seasons ago. And so we went into the season with that lineup of Daniel Tice and Christian Wood kind of being our bodies in the paint. It was a complete and utter disaster. No disrespect to Daniel Tice, but there was no floor spacing. There was absolutely no floor spacing in any way, shape, or form. I mean, you look at this, man. We came out into the season. Our first 6 games of the year, we scored 101.5. Second month, November, 16 games, 104 points, just brutal. And then you kind of started seeing the benching of Daniel Tice. He'd still gain some starts, and there were still some games where he would come out onto the bench. I'm not saying Daniel Tice was the reason for the dysfunctionality of our offense. I'm just saying, that's kind of when things started to change, was after the month of November. There were just a lot of things about our squad last year that I wasn't a huge fan of. You know, Eric Gordon like pretty much ended the entire season starting. We'll share a different screen here, but there's just kind of a brief overview of the way we looked last year. And here's what we are looking at for this upcoming season. So Rafael Stone, Steven Silas, they've made it abundantly clear that it's looking like Eric Gordon will be our starting small forward for this upcoming season. Now, I have flaws with that. I have issues with that. We'll kind of go through player by player. We'll kind of go through a couple of lineups. My best guess, and keep in mind, man, we got guys like Jabari down here. This is just one of the only real GMs, really one of the only solid enough depth charts that you can kind of just throw onto a screen and talk about it. So, in my opinion, our starting lineup this upcoming year will be Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, Eric Gordon, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Sengun. Now, what would I like that to be? Well, it's very simple. Kevin Porter Jr., Jalen Green, and then either Jabari or Tari at 3, vice versa at 4, and then Alperen Sengun. So that's my starting line. But I guess we're still going to keep deploying Eric Gordon out there. He can get you some playmaking. He can get you. He's going to get you some points. The thing with Houston this upcoming season, guys, is we actually have a lot of mouths to feed. All right, we have, look at this roster. I mean, this is a deep ass roster. I would imagine that not all of these players will be on our opening day roster. I mean, I'm looking at guys like Trey Burke here, I'm looking at David Waba, although I'm pretty positive they'll bring back David Waba as far as like having a role. Sterling Brown, Daishen Nix, KJ Martin Jr., Marquise Chris. We can even go all the way down here to I almost said Bogdanovich, Boban. A lot of those guys, mainly all of them. I mean, Boban, geez, bro. Sterling Brown and Trey Burke, those 4 players were acquired in the Christian Wood trade. So I don't really think that all of them will be on our squad this upcoming year. You know, honestly, looking at this lineup, looking at this rotation, it honestly is giving me a bunch of anxiety. I mean, there are just so many guys on this team, on this roster right now that I want to see minutes for this upcoming year. And if we have guys like Trey Burke, Sterling Brown, Boban, Marquise Chris, no disrespect to any of those 4 players, but maybe one of those 4 is worth keepable. Like maybe it's Marquise Chris, Trey Burke maybe for backup point guard duties if they're not feeling great about Daishen Nix and Ty Washington Jr. being the combined backup or just one or the other being the backup point guard for this upcoming season. I go down to Bruno Fernando. You know, Bruno looked really solid in the really – do they show stats on here? He was really solid for us in the really limited playing time that we saw of him. Look at this. So just 10 games, just 9 minutes a night, 7 points, pretty solid. 4 rebounds, almost a block per night. He's just a nice big body to have, and it's not looking like Usman Garuba is going to have that big of a role on our team this upcoming year. So we have our franchise guy. I guess that's first things first. We have our franchise guy. Now it's all about just kind of continuing to progress, continuing to develop our young talent. So this is going to be a big year for guys like Kevin Porter Jr. You know, KPJ in the first half of the season was pretty abysmal, man. You know, he really was pretty abysmal. It's like he was averaging like 13.5 points per game. He was shooting poorly. He was averaging like 3.5, 4 turnovers a night. And then second half of the season, we kind of saw it on StatMuse there. The Houston Rockets offense started firing on all cylinders, and you had Jalen Green was dropping, 40 bomb on his last game against the Atlanta Hawks. He was dropping 30 almost every single night for the last 10 or so games. But what often gets forgotten about was Kevin Porter Jr. was right there with him, man. KPJ was right there plugging along, dropping 20 points. His actually second half averages, it was 19.5 points. I think it was about 4.5, 5 rebounds, and 6.5 assists. So that's the Kevin Porter Jr. that I'm expecting. But this is going to be a big year for him because it's a contract year, and we need to figure out, is he going to be our starting franchise moving forward? I would love to say yes. I really want to say yes, but I still understand that, their thoughts on an extension. There's rumors that they're working on an extension right now, and I don't know what the money's going to look like. I don't know if it's going to be a Keldon Johnson 4-year, $80 million contract. That was, I'd take KPJ for $20 million a year any day of the week. As long as he continues to get better and as long as he looks like what he did last year, I would be upset. I mean, I don't think that they'll pay him 4 years, 120 like RJ just got paid, but that's kind of like, it'll fall somewhere in between those. I mean, I see some people saying, I saw a tweet yesterday saying KPJ is going to have a breakout season and get paid like 12 to 13 a year. I'm like, I don't know who you think KPJ is, but he's not as bad as whoever the hell he is in your mind. KPJ is going to get a bag. All right. KPJ, unless a God forbid, knock on wood, Colin Sexton situation happens where you're 11 games in and you get injured, Colin Sexton still got paid a bag. So KPJ, the Rockets are going to have to decide, you know what? How does Daishen Nix, how does Ty Washington Jr. look? I would imagine neither of those guys are going to be ready to be the Houston Rockets starting point guard if they were to let Kevin Porter Jr. walk. But my best guess is that he does get some type of extension because, especially considering guys on extensions like Keldon Johnson Jr., 4 years, $80 million, that's such a tradable contract. It's so tradable. So if you're able to get KPJ 4 years, $80 million, that is something I will do. I will do that 100%, and he will always be tradable as long as he is on that contract. Jalen Green, this is going to be just a fun-ass season for Jalen. I wish I had his first and second half stats. I need to work on that. This is only like my 4th team that I've done this for. So maybe Real GM isn't the best option, but Jalen Green in the last month of the season literally dropped 26 points. All right. He dropped 28 points in the last 28.5 points per game in the last month of the season. And then in the second to last month of the season, he was dropping 24. So in the last 2 months combined, Jalen Green was averaging about 25, 26 points a night. To me, that's a franchise piece. That's our franchise piece. And not only was he scoring at whim, but the offense was moving a lot better in general. And he was playmaking for himself. He was playmaking for his teammates. He was getting some assists. But most importantly to me, he was improving on the defensive end. It's not going to be anything crazy statistically. I don't even think he averaged a steal. Yeah, he averaged last season 0.6 steals per game. Jalen Green, you just want to get him to a satisfactory, adequate, playable level. That's all you need Jalen Green to be. If he's going to be dropping 25 a night, if he's going to be dropping 20 plus a night, he just needs to be solid on defense. And a lot of it is effort, and a lot of it is literally just effort and hard work. Knowing where to be, knowing where not to be, just using your mind. Like Jalen Green, especially with our coaching staff, I know we haven't really quite seen it happen yet because we were the second worst defense in the league last year, but they really look like they're getting Jalen Green to being a full-on adequate defender at his position and at his size. Eric Gordon, I really don't have much for you. I really appreciate everything Eric has done for this Houston Rockets franchise. I will, I guess I wish he retires as a Rocket, but at the same time, it probably is going to affect our further development and progression of some of these younger cats. It just kind of depends on how they deploy him. What I want to happen, and I really don't understand why this won't happen, is literally just have Eric Gordon be the backup point guard. Just have him be the backup point guard, split ball handling duties with Josh Christopher, because we've seen Josh Christopher. We saw him do it last season. We saw him do it all summer league. He can be the ball handler. He can be the primary ball handler. So I would rotate Josh Christopher and Eric Gordon as your primary backup ball handlers, and I would have Ty Washington, or I guess Daisha Nix, whoever they feel like they're going to go with. My opinion would be, I hope it is Ty Washington. That's who I hope it's going to be. We still don't really know Daisha Nix's future with the Houston Rockets. He didn't look great in the summer league, but at the same time, he didn't look god-awful. He didn't look like Anthony Lamb level bad, but he wasn't Tari Eason good. So we'll wait and see with that. But that's what I would do for the Eric Gordon situation. I would still look to trade him at the trade deadline. Unless you have a good role for him on the bench. I mean, I don't see a world why Eric Gordon, even if Eric Gordon's starting, I don't see a world why he should cut into minutes for Tari Eason and Jabari Smith Jr., even guys like Jayshawn Tate, KJ Martin Jr. And if it is cutting into their minutes, you know what you need to do, man. You know what you need to do. If starting Eric Gordon means you don't have a starting Tari Eason, but Tari Eason coming off the bench is giving you 12, 6, and 3. He's shooting 35% from downtown. He's doing his thing on the defensive end. He's even showing it statistically, because he will. Then you know what you need to do with Eric Gordon. Jayshawn Tate, man, this is going to be a big year for him as far as starters go. If he can take that Julius Randle lead, if he can take it. We saw a very small increase from three-pointer, but he came into his rookie season taking about 2.8 threes a game, shooting it for a 31% clip. Got it up barely. What is that? 0.4% increase. Took a little less threes, but not really by much. I mean, 31% isn't the end of the world. Jayshawn Tate was actually shooting really solid from downtown in the second half of the season. I don't want to get this one wrong, so I'm actually going to just really quickly Google it, because I know he improved for a fact from downtown in the second half of the season. I don't think you guys can see this on the screen, but post All-Star break, he shot 38.2% from downtown. So, wow, same amount of threes, 2.5, 2.6. Same amount of threes, but he started making them at a 35% clip. If you can get a Jayshawn Tate who's draining his threes in the corner and he's just making enough from outside of the corner, that's going to do a lot, because it's going to make teams respect him. And that's kind of what I was trying to allude to. And if you guys watched the Rockets this past season at the start, you know what I'm saying. Jayshawn Tate and Daniel Tice in the same starting lineup was a complete nightmare. I mean, it was just quite genuinely a complete nightmare. I mean, Jayshawn Tate, where he scores, he was a center in college, played overseas as a big man. Like, he does his scoring in the paint. That's where he does his scoring. So I have no role actually at all for Jayshawn Tate unless he's shooting 35% from downtown. You will literally see it whenever you watch Jayshawn Tate play. If he is playing the three position, or if he is even just outside of the 3-point line, they will let him take that. Because more often than not, Jayshawn Tate's not going to make 5 open threes, or he's not going to make 5 straight threes, or he's just not going to make 5 threes in a game. That's very uncharacteristic for Jayshawn Tate. Now it makes me think, what's his career high from downtown in one game? But that's something you'll take. You'll take Jayshawn Tate taking wide open threes if that's what he wants to do. Because if he's making a 30% clip, I mean, it doesn't help the Houston Rockets that much. If he's only making them at a 30% clip, but he's chucking up a bunch of threes because they're wide open, it's not the best shot every single time. But if he can get to a respectable number, that's why I look at 35%. But I would even take 33% and put him at a power forward role. I just don't think we can't have another season of Jayshawn Tate shooting the way he does from downtown or even just deep in general and be at the small forward. We just can't have it happen unless you have, especially with Alperen Sengun, he's not that crazy of a stretch three. Maybe if he has a huge jump, but I don't see that happening at this young of an age. I mean, he's shot 71% from the free throw line, so that's very good. Usually a future indicator of what they're going to shoot from downtown or what their potential is. But 25% from downtown Alperen Sengun, that's still not like, maybe you're not going to let him shoot a wide open three every single time. Like you won't let Jayshawn Tate take a necessarily wide open three every single time. But more often than not, if Sengun or Tate wants to take a three and you're laid on a rotation and you have to run all the way back, you're probably just going to position yourself for a rebound. So we can't have Jayshawn Tate and Alperen Sengun start if they're both shooting sub 30% from downtown. It just isn't going to work. It really just isn't going to work. So I think Tate is a little bit more suited for a bench role. I would rather have Tari Eason at the 3, Jabari at the 4, like I said. However, I would understand if they decide to go Jabari at the 3, Tate at the 4, Tari Eason as the 6th man. I'm also perfectly okay with that. I just hope by the end of the season that if Jayshawn Tate's struggling from downtown and it's not looking like he is molding himself into a possible star in this league or all-star in this league, I would prioritize a bench in Eric Gordon and Jayshawn Tate. But Steven Silas knows what he's doing. That's another thing. Steven Silas knows what he's doing. I really hate Steven Silas slander. It's something I really just don't tolerate it. He runs a complex offense. He runs a very complex scheme. It's very systematic. And when you have Christian Wood, James Harden, Russell Westbrook on your team, John Wall on your team, when you first get into town and your expectations are to win a championship, and then out of nowhere, your star player, your franchise player, James Harden, is like, I'm out of here, actually. Your whole franchise has to do a complete flip. You have to do a complete flip. And Rafael Stone has done a phenomenal job with acquiring young talent. Guys, we saw it right away with trading for Kevin Porter Jr. We saw it right away in the first draft. We saw it right away in the first offseason and right when Rafael Stone we saw it immediately with Christian Wood signing and Jayshawn Tate getting signed. And both of those two guys turned out to be really useful so far for us. Christian Wood, I wish him the best of luck, but future-wise, it wasn't going to work in Houston. He's just not fitting the schedule. He's not fitting the timeline. So Alperen Sengun, this upcoming season, he's still very young. He's looked very good in off-season play right now overseas for Turkey. The whole situation happened today, so I won't speak on that too much. So hopefully, we might have seen the end of Alperen Sengun this summer, which isn't a bad thing necessarily with all things considered because we have training camp starting later this month. 10.6 rebounds, 3 assists. The way he was fouling dudes, I mean, Sengun would get fouled out almost all the time. Or not, I shouldn't say all the time, but let's see. He's averaging 3 fouls a night in 20.7 minutes played. So that's something he needs to work on, and that's something that I guarantee will be lower this upcoming season. Probably definitely won't be fixed necessarily, but you are going to see a more consistent Alperen Sengun, and I think he'll probably get up towards around 15 points a night and around 7-8 rebounds, and he'll probably stay somewhere between 3 and 4 assists. He's a phenomenal, underrated passer. Hopefully we see an increase from downtown 3-point percentage because that would add a whole other bag to his game. We know he can play defense. He can play defense. The Rockets' defense wasn't helping him out much last season, but you just got to knock back the fouls. Moving forward to the bench unit, according to Real GM, we have the bench unit here. Like I was talking about earlier, I don't know what they're going to do about backup point guard. You got Ty, you got Trey Burke, you got Josh Christopher, you have Eric Gordon, you have Daishen Nix. I don't know what they're going to do, but I will say this. I want to see a lot of Josh Christopher. All right. And that's what we saw a lot of last season. His minutes drastically improved. The start of the season, Josh Christopher was averaging guys like 7 minutes a night. Like the first couple of months, you see this. He played 7-4 games. He played a bunch of games for us. That 29 or that 30% rounded up 3-point number, I wouldn't worry about that one bit. I really wouldn't worry about that one bit. Very good, very solid free throw shooter, 74%. But, shooting the ball from downtown wasn't a skill set for Josh Christopher, or it wasn't a strength to his game. When he was coming out of college, like he shot like 25% at Arizona State in college. So he's more of a rim getter. He's more of a don't let this dude get downhill. Don't let this guy get in transition. But I anticipate a huge increase, probably somewhere to 33, 34, 35% from downtown, kind of what we were seeing in the summer league for Josh Christopher. But all I know is I need to see more of him because especially defensively, he is so good at holding his own. We've seen him light up from downtown. We've seen him light up on offense on general. So we just need to see more Josh Christopher like we did towards the end of the season last year. So I have no worries or concerns with that. As far as backup point guard goes, I'm honestly just going to leave it at that because I don't know what they're going to do. Ty looked okay in summer league. He didn't look like, to basically summarize how Ty looked, in my opinion, was he didn't look G League worthy. Like, it's not like he wasn't like Garuba raw, right? But he definitely wasn't. I'd feel comfortable with him starting basketball games for us. Because I wouldn't feel comfortable with Ty starting basketball games for us. I wouldn't feel comfortable with Usman Garuba starting basketball games for us at center. If we were trying to win basketball games, let's just be real here. Let's be frank. Those are two very young, very raw players, 19, 20 years old. I mean, that's what usually happens, especially for an overseas cat like Usman Garuba. But he's been working his ass off all summer. And I'm hoping Usman Garuba can get a lot more playing time, whether it's in the G League, whether it's in the Rockets bench. Hopefully we see enough of Ty and Usman once the second half of the season comes around. So to kind of do a real quick brief overview, I want to say that Houston will be a playing team this upcoming year, but most likely, guys, we won't. You're going to need a lot of different things to happen. And I think for the most part, we'll probably hover somewhere around not 20 wins, but we'll probably be barely above it. And that is not the end of the world. We just want to see more consistency on offense and defense. And we want to see our young cats really just show up what they're capable of. Like I said, I would love to be wrong, and I really hope I am wrong, but I think the Rockets are at least one season away from making some legitimate playing noise. The Western Conference, as it is as well, is extremely deep. But Houston will be better than they were last year, especially watchability-wise. Garrison Matthews, just solid role player, solid bench player to have. David Waba, good defender to have. Sterling Brown, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't honestly know what they're going to do with KJ Martin Jr. I don't know what they're going to do with Marquise Chris. I'd love to see KJ Martin Jr. get some more playing time. It's not like he hasn't gotten enough playing time. He played 21 minutes a night last year at just 20 years old. Missed 3 games. Like, I don't really know what the issue was. Considering he hasn't been traded, I would imagine that all the stuff that came out about his dad saying he should play more, I would imagine that it didn't impact KJ Martin and his role on the Houston Rockets, his relationship with the Houston Rockets coaching staff in a negative way. So I would imagine at this point that they're going to keep KJ Martin Jr., but who knows? We'll end it here with these last couple of young cats, Tari Eason and Jabari Smith Jr. I'm going to make a whole video on this, so I won't speak too in-depth about this. Jabari Smith Jr. has a lot of things he needs to work on, guys. He has a lot of things he needs to work on. So I'm not anticipating anything crazy. I would say he's probably going to shoot somewhere around 15 points per game. I don't think his shooting numbers are going to be all that efficient. My guess would be somewhere around 43, 44% from the field and somewhere around 37 to 40% from downtown. You'll see all the potential. I just don't know if it's going to be at an efficient level night in and night out. He just has a lot of things he needs to work on, like attacking the basket, ball handling, dribbling, kind of just scoring on his own. So it's going to take time. You're going to see a bunch of flashes like we did in the summer league. He's a very long, lanky player. He's going to make his threes, and he's going to play some defense. So you're going to see enough from Jabari, but I just want to get people's expectations in check. Like, it's not like he's going to be dropping like 25 a night here. Hopefully I'm wrong. That would be sick if Jabari Smith Jr. has a 25-point per game score. Tari Eason, a lot of him is going to depend on his three-point shot and where Houston values him as far as playing. To me, he's like Jayshawn Tate, but better. I mean, he's just kind of what he's kind of what you wanted from Jayshawn Tate, but Tari Eason's a lot bigger. He's a lot longer, and he has a more consistent three-point shot. And he, as we saw in Summer League, the man has an endless motor, and he is literally just willing to do all the dirty work. Defense leads to offense. He did a phenomenal job, and I anticipate that to carry through in this upcoming regular season. So that's really it for today. If I had to make a roster prediction, I would probably go somewhere along the lines of 25 wins. I'll say 25 wins is a good baseline for us, and that's an improvement in its own regard. So Houston's literally a couple of years away from contending at a high level, and I think that they're just one off season away from competing for a legitimate playoff spot, not just play-in spot, like literal top 6 seed. So let me know what you guys think about the Houston Rockets down below. If you are watching this on my main channel and you want to check out my Houston Rockets channel, the link is somewhere down below. And that's really it, man. Let me know what you guys think about Houston. Drop some roster predictions down below, some win-loss predictions, and I'll see you guys later. Peace. This takes a while, doesn't it? I think we're still rolling. I really hope this worked.